Well, hello once again to Veterans on the Front Porch, a program for and about Wolfeboro veterans and in the area, of course. I'm your host, Clint Brown, and today I'd like to welcome my guest, Alan Farley. Alan, nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here. Thank you very much for the invite.
Well, I appreciate you coming on such a cold day anyway.
Well,
Retired Air Force.
yep.
What prompted you to go into the Air Force?
Well, it kind of started with, I'd almost ended up in the service right at the end of the Vietnam War. I was just become eligible, and then the war was done. So yes, but I was going to enlist in the Navy or the Air Force because I didn't want to be a ground pounder in Nam.
Right.
I had some friends that had been over there, and it wasn't a pretty story, So
Right, yeah.
anyhow, so I went to community college for a while, and then worked. But the old saying my father had, it's time to get off the pot or pee. So I went down and I initially took the tests for the Army, the physical, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
I was going to join, but then all of a sudden, when the day I was supposed to show up, I said, you know what? And then, so then I went back down to the place down there, and they were all in one, building.
Yep.
I went and decided to join the Air Force. So I went down there and went through everything, and they told me, how would you like to be a weapons mechanic?
A weapons machinist.
Mechanic.
Oh, mechanic. A
So-
weapons mechanic?
I didn't understand what it really was until I got into the service.
Right.
What I found out was bomb loaders, bomb and missile loaders on. So,
That kind of had to be a stressful job.
yes and no. The war was already over, so it wasn't like we really had anything. But it was interesting. Different things that come along. You had to, became part of a load crew.
Right.
It was on the F4s. There was a 4-member team. Later on down the road, when we got the F-16s and F-15s, it became a 3-member crews. And you would by hand load some of the missiles. The AIM-9s would be loaded by hand. The AIM-7s would be loaded by the adapter that was on they call a bomb lifter.
You never dropped one, did you?
No, never did. But it was, it was quite interesting. I was out at Holloman Air Force Base for my first 4 years,
Uh-huh.
about 90 miles north, directly north of El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
It was a rather big base. It had it was a full 4-squadron training wing of, I can't remember the name of this silly plane now. But they were for training, they
Right.
were training pilots, and the weapons things. And then we had, it was also because out at Holloman, which is where north of Holloman is where the first nuclear bomb was tested.
All right. Yeah.
They had older planes that they used as drones and stuff like that, and they did things, and so that was kind of interesting to watch them. The old 1950s vintage planes.
Wow.
You could get out there and watch them take off. And of course, we took turns going to the end of the runway. There had to be a crew chief out there and a load crew to all the planes, so we armed and de-armed the planes.
Okay.
The safety things, and the crew chief would take the plane, and guide them in and out, back to the tarmac.
Wow.
But it was interesting, really enjoyed it. I was there for the first 2 years. I was unmarried, and then I got married to my wife Marilyn. We've been married for 42 years. And
42 years. Well, congratulations.
thank you. And so we had a good time there. We used to go up the mountains. It was in the valley. The valley was about 4,000 feet above sea level. The mountains on the east side got up to average about 9,000 to 10,000 feet.
Wow.
You got Cielo Vista up at the Mescalero Apache Reservation, which was about 13,000 feet above sea level, and it was snow-capped a good part of the year. But you could only see it from the base. You couldn't see it from the town because the town was up against the mountains.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
But it was really beautiful.
Now, where did you live when you joined the Air Force?
I was born in Lynn, Mass. At Lynn Hospital, but I was raised in Saugus, Massachusetts, and I went over to Lynn to where the place was, and that's where I enlisted. And then when I left on February 12th of '95, my father took me in, and they bussed us down to Logan to meet a plane, and there was others there from around the New England area, and from there we flew down to Atlanta. But the plane was late leaving Boston. The plane was late leaving Atlanta.
Oh, gee.
So we got there rather late into Lackland Air Force Base. So we got in, and they took us to the dormitory we were going to be in. And the assistant TI came and went through all the stuff. We did paperwork, filled out a little form to send back to Mom and Dad.
Yep.
So they had our address and a phone number if they needed to reach us in case there was something had happened in the family, which my grandmother passed away when I was in basic training. But I knew it was coming, so it wasn't one of those events where I needed to go home for. I mean, I'd made my peace. My grandmother and myself on Saturday nights, it was our night. We sit there and watch some of the old movies and enjoy each other's company very much so. Whereas
good memories.
My two brothers and sister just weren't into that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah.
I was the oldest, and anyhow, we got there late, so he went through all the routine. They took us down to the chow hall, got us a meal, brought us back, and says, tomorrow morning you'll get to sleep in a little late. But this is the thing that really got to me. He says, but tomorrow morning when the dorm guard says get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you better jump out of bed. Well, the guy that was in the bunk next to me didn't. The TI came in, walked up, grabbed the metal frame with the chain-like thing, flipped him like that.
Gee.
The bed and him went flying.
Wow.
And I was so glad I made a point. So for the 20 years I was in service, I was never, ever late for formation of any kind.
Yeah.
I got out of bed. It made me more, because I was a nighttime person when I was born in the military. I didn't like the morning.
You didn't like the mornings?
I liked nights. I'd stay up reading until midnight. I loved to read. My mother instilled a love of reading in me.
Well, that's good.
So.
Yeah, that will teach you to get up early in the morning, won't it? Wow.
It did, but it was interesting, we worked, hard. We obviously we'd have exercises where we worked 12-hour shifts.
Yeah.
And we'd rotate our shifts, days, swings, which was from 3 to midnight, and mids, which is from 11 something to 7 in the morning.
Right.
But it was just. So it was interesting, but the thing is, the crew that we were on, the low crew we were on, everybody was single on it.
Ah.
So when things happened or people did this, we would get switched around. We'd go into work, expecting to work the shift, and then they send us back to the dormitory and says, come on back the next shift.
Now, you're saying a dormitory. You don't mean a barracks.
Yeah, barracks.
A barracks, okay.
Yeah, I lived in the barracks for the first 2 years I was in until I got married.
Uh-huh.
I had some friends that went ahead and they got approved to go downtown and rent an apartment, or whatever, and they stayed down there. But I wasn't going to spend my hard-earned money doing that.
No.
Just,
Well, now, when you first joined, were you planning on making it a career?
no.
Okay.
But, the thoughts had crossed my mind, but it was a while later. But when I got married, that kind of changed things.
Yeah. It will. Yeah.
And so that made a difference. And so we were there for 4 years and had a wonderful time. Like I said, we got to go up all the place. We went all the way up over the mountains and down the other side to a place called, I don't know if you've heard of Carlsbad Caverns.
Sure, yeah.
They're absolutely beautiful. In fact, my son and daughter-in-law, he took his family out there to show them where he had lived out there. He couldn't get on base because he was not.
Right.
But he took them to Carlsbad Caverns, and it's just absolutely beautiful in there,
So you were there for 4 years?
Yes.
Then where?
I went to Okinawa.
Wow,
My,
that's
my wife became pregnant when we were at Holloman. My son was born when we were in Okinawa. My dad had been in the Navy during World War II. His mother had passed away when he was so little he didn't have any real memory of her.
oh, wow.
He did the foster scene until he was around 10 years old, and my grandfather put him in a boys' farm out in Barre, Massachusetts, where he lived. And the deal was you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, did your chores, come in, got dressed, had breakfast, went to school, come home, did your chores, had supper, did your homework, went to bed. That was Monday through Friday.
Wow.
And on weekends, you worked, and they give you some free time.
Some free time.
So anyhow, when he turned 17, he went down to the Navy to try to enlist. Didn't weigh enough.
Didn't weigh enough?
Didn't weigh enough. He was quite thin.
Wow.
So he went back and he started eating and take everybody else's stuff that they didn't want to eat. I mean, he was just piling it on. And then he went down there, and before he walked in, he went to the local soda shop and got 2 huge banana splits and wolfed them down. He was still slightly under, but they let him go.
He was still underweight, even
Yeah.
though, wow.
So he was like a fraction of a pound under.
Oh, okay.
So they took him. He went outside, barfed it up all over the sidewalk, walked back to the boys' farm and said, "I'm leaving on such a date." And it was just as World War II was starting.
Wow.
So he was in the whole time. He was in the Navy out in the Pacific.
In the
So
Pacific, yeah.
he got sent to New Zealand, which for him was the most beautiful part. He said that's the most beautiful place he's ever seen on Earth.
I've heard that.
It was, the Hobbit series and and the Lord of the Rings series was filmed
Yep.
there. Anyhow, he loved it. He always wanted to go back. But we as a family, we tried to, for their 50th anniversary, tried to make it happen, but we just couldn't,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But so he was,
Now, did he make it a career as well?
no, he didn't. He was just in until the war was over.
Okay.
But he things like being in Guam when they took Guam, and then they got him off board ship for a while. They were out and they slept in tents. Well, the flaps would lift up on the sides there so they could get breeze because it was during the summer it was rather warm out there.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, at nighttime the army crabs would come across in mass across the island.
Oh,
So he said, you'd put your head inside your sleeping bag and wait till they got all done marching across, because they'd literally come right up over top of you and through, and it was like a long time. I forget how long he said it would last every night. He said it was crazy.
I'll bet it was, feeling those things crawling over you.
Yeah. But he remembers, he actually landed on Okinawa 3 days before the Battle of Okinawa began. He went in
Wow.
with some others, and he said it was really amazing. They got in there and got back off. But he says you don't know what scared is until like the Battle of Okinawa came, and the kamikazes were coming right at you, trying to kill you. And he, even though he was a pharmacist mate, it was his regular duty. When the enemy came, everybody manned the guns.
Oh, yeah, battle
And he
stations.
says when you see them coming at you, you're doing everything you can to make sure you can shoot him and blow him up before they could hit you, or they'll drop into the water or whatever.
That was one of the worst battles of World War II.
It was.
Yeah. And you got to go to Okinawa obviously
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yep. And there was a big area over there, that was fenced off. You couldn't go in. There was a lot of stuff that was left there, and they didn't want anybody in there. It was,
Maybe some,
unexploded ordnance.
I was going to say, yeah.
Plus the other areas over there, we found out, like when there was a golf course. I mean, there was a military recreation stuff on the northern part of the island for all 4 services that were serving over there. We all, and mixed on different bases. There was no specific. Well, this is Army base. This is a Navy
Right.
type thing. Anyhow, there was a military recreation shop at the northern end of the island where we'd go to, and went up there to play golf. And the first thing that they told us, me and my 2 friends that were up there, if your ball goes in the wood, just get another one out. Don't go into the woods.
Wow.
You can't. It's hard to see into the woods.
Yeah.
He says because the snakes over there, and the worst one was nicknamed Habu, poisonous. You couldn't get to a hospital fast enough to save your life if you were bitten by
Really?
one of those things.
Wow. Wow,
So
yeah.
we didn't, so my friend and I, we decided, the two of us went to do golf, and we were up there. Our wives were at a ladies' Bible conference. We got to go up there with, and so I hit the ball, and it went right up over, and I thought it landed in the woods, but my friends went straight down because it was an L
Okay, yeah.
thing. So I said, I'll walk down with you to see, just to take a grin. Well, my ball actually landed about this far from the green, and you couldn't see
Really?
the green. I mean, it was blind,
Right over the trees.
right over the trees and right down.
Wow.
So it was literally amazing. I got there, and it was just, but it was just,
You thought you'd lost it,
I
huh?
thought I lost it, and I was just going to go back and shoot another one,
Yeah.
and suck it up,
Wow.
But it was. Otherwise, it was the only really good tee that I had. That haven't been my first time at ever golfing. So other than miniature golfing,
Right, yeah,
which doesn't really
yeah.
get you anywhere with that. Other than putting.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So, but it was fun. And
Now, did you stay on Okinawa for 4 years?
3 years there,
Uh-huh.
and from there I left and went to my wife. My wife got pregnant again, and my daughter was born in Moody Air Force Base in South Georgia.
Wow.
Right off Highway 75, about 20 minutes from the Florida border. And I spent 4.5 years there.
So you went from Okinawa across the country to Georgia.
Yep.
Wow, what a culture shock that must have been.
Yeah, it was. The temperatures, though, the heat was kind of balanced out on both ends.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Though down in Georgia, actually, there was a few times we were there. A few times, my parents came down to visit us, and I had learned a trick from my father about dripping the faucets,
Uh-huh.
the outside faucet, and in the house faucets, because down there, your houses, a lot of them had lattice work on the bottom.
Right.
The pipes ran underneath the thing. Insulation wasn't really used down there,
No.
and so, my father said, we'll go drip all the faucets tonight. So we did, and I learned that little trick. So every time it got cold or close to it and looked like it might be going over, under zero, freezing,
Yep.
I dripped all the things. Because the funny thing down there, $13.50 was the monthly water bill, no matter how much you used.
Really?
It was crazy.
Wow. Sure
So
don't
you
find that
couldn't-
here, do
yeah,
we?
you wouldn't, and so it was rather, worked out. It was a good system, But there were other people. I remember one time we had a really deep freeze one down there one time, and I was driving out to the base, and I see all these cars on the side of the road. Well, I find out after the fact that these guys had no antifreeze in their engines. So the radiators had frozen. I mean, the engine block was no problem. The car starts up, it warms up, the water is same. Then when the thermostat kicks in to start rotating the water around, it wasn't rotating, and it was
What a mess.
so. There was cars were on the side of the road. For anybody who didn't have it, they didn't. A lot of these people that didn't live down, they didn't think they thought they didn't need any freeze in their cars
right.
down there.
Well, Florida and Georgia, who would
Yep.
think?
I mean, maybe southern Florida might be the one place you could get to
Yeah.
that you would never need it. But I mean, we had several spouts. I'd say probably maybe 5 or so that when I was there in the 4.5 years I was there that
Wow.
got really down there.
So you were there for 3 years.
4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Yeah. So when I was in Okinawa, I mean, Holloman the first time I had worked on F4s, Ds, and then we got in F-15 A's and B's. Went to Okinawa to work on F-15s,
Uh-huh.
and we had A's and B's over there. And then at Moody, we had F-4Es,
Okay.
which had a nose gun
Right.
built into the plane. And we were supposed to be getting F-16s, but the F-16s never came before I left.
Oh.
In fact, they never did show up. We found out afterwards when we went down there. When we went back, the States, we went down through there and found out that they had changed it into a training base, so they had
Oh,
a whole ton of T-38s
yeah.
down there for training.
Now, was that your last duty station?
No, that was my third one.
Okay.
From there, when I left, we went to Germany at Spangalen base, Spangalen in Germany, up in the area near the what's the name? You have Denmark, and then just south of Denmark. I can't remember the name of the country now. All of a sudden,
Not Norway.
no, Norway was up
Right.
way up north. Anyhow, and then you had France. So it was like an area. You could go to this one town for breakfast, Paris for lunch, and be home for supper time in the evening.
Wow.
That was how easy it was to get to both places.
Right.
But we had,
Now, did you need a visa to get through all that?
if you went to foreign countries, it depends. Some you can go to without any problems.
Right.
France required a visa.
Yeah.
But it was, but over there we had, got there, we had F4Es, and then we got F-16s, and we were over there during Desert Storm.
Oh.
So they cleaned out the guy that was in charge of the. We were a wild weaseling. Originally, we had F4Gs and F4Es. The F4Gs being the wild weasels.
Uh-huh.
And they, when Desert Storm came up, the George Air Force Base in California also was a wild weasel wing, but they were still F4Es and Gs. The general that ran the wing down there, because it was a much bigger base, was in charge of all the wild weasels that went over. And Holloman sent. He didn't want the F-16s down there. All he wanted was the F-4Gs.
Oh.
So we were still pilling
Well,
around
you
with
must
the.
have been busy loading those planes.
Well, we were just we didn't have any real say at the Desert Storm because I didn't get to go down there. All these guys were volunteering,
Right.
figuring it was going to make their career, or performance reports better that would help them get promoted to the next rank, but they were gone for a long time. I mean, I wanted to, when we left, they were still down there, and my ex-boss drove us to the airport over in Frankfurt. When we got there, we were supposed to have left about 2.5 hours after we got there. We were there for about 8 hours.
Wow.
There was bomb scares everywhere. We got there, they had all these military trucks. I mean, there was police and military people out there with Uzis and everything else
Wow.
out there. I mean, there'd been massive bomb squares. Meanwhile, my parents were in Atlanta waiting for us to fly in down there. We were flying back to go that way there to spend a couple of weeks with them on our way back because we hadn't taken any. I hadn't been back to the States and all when I was in Germany.
Wow.
So finally we got out, but they took every electronic gizzard that anybody had was taken, confiscated, and sent to us later on. About a month later, we finally got my son's backpack that had a radio that my brother had given to him for his Christmas. My Walkman, my wife's Walkman, all this stuff was all sent to us long after the fact, after we got to Holland.
Wow. Wow. Well,
was
now
crazy.
in Germany, your wife got to go with you?
Yes, yep.
So obviously you lived off base.
We lived off base for the first almost a year.
Okay.
It was a small little town south of the base, and it was actually quite nice. We were the only Americans that lived in town. It had a castle, but it didn't have a church.
A castle, but no church.
Yeah, the castle's still there. We took tours through it. Our landlord, we found the place. He had picked us up. He was a taxi driver part time on the base,
Okay.
The base was it was a base that was built on a runway, existing runway. It was dual runways up there. That was a alternate base for Bitburg Air Base, which was across the valley.
Okay.
Bitburg was a much older air base. And they built the base on it, so it was long, and everything was running long and narrow. So it was if you were going to walk, it was a long walk to get places. It wasn't like your average regular base where housing areas more consumed in one area.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So we were taking a ride. He says, "You guys looking for a place to stay?" He gave us his card and explained how to get out to it. So we went out and took a look at it. And his father was there and showed us the place. We said yes. So we had our household goods delivered there, and we spent about a year and a half there before we got on base housing.
Mm-hmm.
And the base housing it was actually off base. They had 3 areas that were made by the Germans. They were part of base housing, and we lived in the one closest to the base.
Did you have a hard time learning the language?
The wife and kids actually had it much easier than I did.
Oh, really?
I learned enough, though, to be friendly and be able to ask questions. I never was a huge language person. I mean, I remember being forced to take Spanish and French when I was in high school,
Right.
and I hated both of them.
Yeah.
So I just, I had enough problems with learning English, proper English.
Right. Yeah.
But it was very interesting. It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed ourselves. They had over there. They have what they call organized walks. They call Volts marches,
Oh, really?
and they're usually 10 to 15 kilometer walks. And you get a book and you get it filled out, and they have and stuff. You just get to meet everybody, and you have depending how long the walk was, it'd be 1 or 2 stops. And they have drink and some food, snacks, and stuff like that to have, and some of them sometimes they'd have beer, but I was never a beer drinker. I've never cared for beer. I'd rather have wine or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah. How about the German food? Was that easy to eat?
It was good, yeah. Of course, my wife loved it a lot better than I did. I mean, my wife's there's almost nothing that my wife doesn't like. So, but it was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed ourselves. We made a lot of friends over there. In fact, I bet one couple that we actually two couples that we met. We've been lifelong friends with them since then. Since we were
great.
there. One couple originally was in Oklahoma, where he grew up. They ended up over in Maine, over in Sanford, Maine.
Okay.
And the other couple is out in Buffalo. And we've gone out there. We went both out there for both their sons' weddings.
Excellent.
They came here for our son's wedding and
Oh, that's great.
whatnot. So I mean, we just the wife and the 3 of them. The 3 wives get together several times. In fact, the other two wives are coming in here in a few days.
Oh, good.
So,
Wow, that's great. So after Germany, is that when you got out?
No, I went from Germany, went back to Holloman Air Force Base again.
Oh my gosh, it was a round
So a round circle.
Round
But when we went back there that time, the things changed. I got there with F-15s, but then the stealth fighters came in
Oh
out
yeah.
of Tonopah. They were there. I got trained on them, but I never got to work on them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I ended up with a staff job for the group commander, which made me happy. I didn't have to work weekends, and my hours were from 7 to 4 every day,
Like a regular job.
like a regular job. So
Well, that's
it was
great.
great. When we did have exercises though, then I'd be on night shift and I'd work part of processing people to be shipped out to go to war. It was all a game sort of thing, but making sure you could do it. So.
I used to hate it when they put you on that 3 to 11 shift, and then you had to get up the next morning at 7 to start.
Yeah. Well, we come in, there's times when we come in and we'd gone, come in from mid-shift, so we were already, And they says, go on home, come back in tomorrow morning.
Right.
What?
Yeah, I know.
You know, or they, you know, they do that to us because when I was there the first time, I was single for the first 2 years.
Right.
And single people, they showed no sympathy for you. If
No.
you were single, you had nothing that you need to drive, you know, whereas when
Yeah.
family come along, they would be a little more reasonable with you. Not that they still didn't
Well, that was
mess
good.
with you some, but, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, it was still, I mean, I have no regrets for my 20 years in the service, you know, what I did. But
Wow.
it was quite joyful, you know, and when we were, like I said, when we were out there the second time, we lived downtown for a little bit, and then we moved on base. And the kids went to school. It was the church we went to had a Christian school, so my wife taught there, and you know,
Uh-huh.
she got in there. Whenever a class got above a certain amount of people, they'd hire assistants for it.
Right.
Well, it worked out that my daughter's class had extra people, so my wife got hired. So her pay, and being a member of the church, she still had pay left over, but it paid for the kids' education.
Well, that's great.
So
Wow.
it worked out. I mean, you couldn't be more blessed than something like that.
No.
And
Really?
it was just wonderful, you know. And they were there for the whole, you know, time we were there, and it was great. They, you know, made a lot of good friends, and they're still in contact with some of them, you know, to this
Well,
day.
that's tremendous. I've lost contact with a lot of the guys I was with.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they're all over the country. I noticed the pins on your hat. Are there any significance to them?
Well, just the regular American flag and the
Right.
American flag with the Israeli flag with it.
Okay.
'Cause we're pretty close, and then this one just has the Air Force one attached to it,
Uh-huh.
and this is just an enlisted type pin, and then that was given to me by a local priest. It's anti-abortion.
Okay.
So it is,
What's the big one there?
this one here I got when we went to the Blue Angels
Oh.
over in Maine with some friends.
Okay.
In fact, Dave Carney, one of the guys that had been in the service with.
That's really something to see, those
Yeah.
Blue Angels.
Oh, they are. They're absolutely awesome.
I don't know how they do it. I'd be scared to death.
Yeah. all of the flight teams, you know, the Navies and the Air
Yeah.
Forces. I mean, they're all wonderful. I've
Yeah.
seen them all. You know, I've seen them both in several different times, and you know, and then through the different planes that they transferred from the F-4s to the.
Well, what brought you to Wolfeboro?
Well, my wife's father was born and raised in Wolfeboro.
Okay.
He had joined the Army, and he was in Michigan towards the end there. He'd been down. He had been down at the Army base down near Holloman,
Ah.
at the missile range.
Okay.
And he anyhow they moved up this way here, stayed in Pennsylvania for a little bit, and then they came here. The thing was in the early '60s, jobs and other stuff were hard to come by.
Mm.
And he needed work, so they moved to Massachusetts, down to Lynn, Massachusetts. They were going to the same church I was born and raised in. My grandfather had married my parents in
What church was that?
East Baptist Church in Lynn.
Okay.
Well, it was on Eastern Avenue at the time.
Yep.
The new one. The older one had been downtown further, but the old building had got to a point where it would have cost a gazillion dollars to repair. It was an old building. You know, a lot of people were sad that when they couldn't, but they understood that the finances just didn't
Yeah.
allow for repairing of it.
Well, we lived in Lynn for a while,
Yeah,
and my son was born in the Lynn Hospital,
yeah, that's where I
Which
was
is-
born. I was born in Lynn Hospital.
right, which is now Stop and Shop or something.
Yeah, and then my brother John was born at Lynn Hospital. But my sister and my younger brother were born at Union Hospital,
Union Hospital.
which I understand, which doesn't understand. I don't think that one exists anymore either, or it's not.
I don't know if it's still there or not.
I don't think if it's open. I don't think it's used for regular hospital. I think they have to go to Salem Hospital now.
Oh, wow.
My sister-in-law and her husband live in Lynn, so that's where they have to go for medical
Salem.
services.
Gee,
all the way over to Salem.
who would have thought a city would lose its hospital?
Yeah, both of them actually,
Yeah.
because Lynn Hospital was the first to go. Anyhow, my father-in-law needed work, so they moved down there, and I was friends with her brother, who was a year younger than me. And then got older, and I asked my wife to date. We dated, and we stopped dating for a while. And then I joined the military. When I come home, she had had a pheocarcinoma tumor on her, had fully engulfed her right adrenal gland.
Wow.
It was the largest one, and to this day it still holds the record for the largest one they know about.
Really?
They had to take the two bottom ribs out here to get in there.
Wow.
And she's got a big scar that goes from here around the back. So anyway, my mother had told me about it and stuff, so I called her, and when I came home on leave the first time, we dated, and then we kept writing, and then come home again, and then at that Christmas, and I asked her to marry me, and the rest is history.
So that's basically what brought you to Wolfeboro?
Yeah, she wanted to move to New Hampshire, and I says, sure, why not? We didn't know exactly where we were going to be at. I mean,
Right.
She kept coming up, going around the area. In fact, she had found a place down in Alton. My father came up and looked at it. Said, yeah, it's a great place. The problem is, it's a shared driveway. And he says, in his experiences over the years that he's known, shared driveways, one person will always try to outweight the other one, so he was going to shovel or do whatever to the driveway.
Right. Yeah.
So that shot that one down.
Yeah, who parks where?
Well, it worked out well for us here because the house we're at is so close to the high school here, and well, even the school. My daughter was still when she got here. She was still going to the school down by the town hall.
Oh yeah, okay.
But it didn't, it was still wasn't much. She got, the high school here and the middle school. I mean, or the junior high school, as we always called it.
Right, absolutely.
It was so close. I mean, it took me. I walked over here this morning in 10 minutes. So, I mean, if they slow leaked it, they might have taken them 15 minutes to walk over here.
It's so cold out there. I don't know how you did it.
So, well, the cold doesn't bother me.
Oh.
So I'm not too bad. But I had always wanted to go to Alaska. I was in the service. I could never get up there, even though they had the planes I worked on, F-15s. But the only thing I got a chance to do was when I was flying back to Okinawa. We landed up in Alaska.
Well, you did.
But they didn't let us off the plane.
I had the same problem in Keflavik, Iceland.
Oh.
They would not let us off the plane because it was 45 below zero.
Yeah.
They said, you won't make it to the Quonset hut. Anyway. Well, you've had quite a varied career.
Yeah.
And you came out as an E what?
E6.
E6.
Yeah, just a tech sergeant. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it was my own fault. I just never took as much time to studying all this stuff, that they passed
Oh, I
written
know.
exams, so it just wasn't my thing.
Well, E6 isn't bad.
No.
I came out of E6 in the National Guard. I was an E5 in the Navy.
Right.
But then all we had to do was take a test, and if you passed it, fine.
Yep.
I mean, if you got a high enough score, you were all set. But if you got a medium score, they would quote you because they had too many E4s or E5s.
Right.
So you had to wait till they.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I know when I was in E6 was the first one E5 was the first one you tested for.
Yeah.
Staff sergeant, and then tech sergeant, then master sergeant, then senior master sergeant, then chief master sergeant.
I was
I know the
thinking
other services had different.
I was thinking of you when I saw yesterday with Bush and the Air Force sergeant at the door.
Right.
I think he must have been a command sergeant major from what I could tell.
Yeah.
Well, again, I want to thank you. This
Thank
has been
you.
very interesting, and I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed myself talking about it.
So thank you again for your service,
Thank
and
you
your
very much.
wife's as well. Obviously, she served with you.
Yep. And the kids, they enjoyed themselves where we were at and what we were doing, and so it was just we were blessed.
Yeah. And Well, we're blessed to have you, and we thank you for your service as well. And one thing I remember, if people are interested, when you run into Alan down at the market, say hello and thank him for his service. It's been quite a service.
I had a number of people. That's why I don't wear it to get the thank you.
Right.
I mean, but I just.
Well, when I got out of the service, people didn't want to say anything.
Right.
I never put a plate on my car, and I never wore a hat or a shirt or anything, because people were very anti-military.
Well, during the '60s was.
Oh, and,
I had several older friends who had gone to Nam. One of them, he was very fortunate. He went over as he worked for the base paper
okay,
when he was over there. So for him it wasn't bad. He wasn't out on
right, he was.
in the jungle and stuff like that. But I mean, I always felt so bad for him. When the stories I heard. I mean, it was quite dangerous. I mean, World War II was a little easier to deal with in Europe. I mean, it was not that it wasn't deadly, but it wasn't like you were fighting guerrilla warfare.
Oh, guerrilla warfare is horrible because you don't know who your enemy is.
No, you don't.
You really don't. No. Well, thank you again, and I'm glad that we ran into each other at the market.
Yeah.
And I'm always happy when I see somebody who's proud enough to wear their hat or a shirt or something, because it means something. And I know how you feel, but when we're at the Cape Park with the music, and they start playing the military songs.
Yep, on Wednesday night. Yep.
Yeah, and they make you stand up. Boy,
Yep.
It feels good.
It does. I really, it's really nice. I was down there one Wednesday night, and it was some guest leading it, and he didn't have the people standing up. It was different, but I understood. I mean, he was somebody that stepped in at the last minute because the person that was supposed to have done it couldn't
Right,
make it.
yeah.
So they
But
wanted the
it's-
concert to go on. So
But it's nice when they do it.
yeah, it is.
It makes you feel good.
It does.
Our guest, Alan Farley, retired Air Force. And I wish you a very happy Christmas and New
Merry
Year.
Christmas to you too, and Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year to you and your family.
God bless.
And thank you, sir, and to you. And that'll do it for this session of Veterans on the Front Porch. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.